In a quiet town, mornings often began with stillness. Michael sat at his old wooden kitchen table, a steaming mug of coffee warming his hands. The house was simple, not grand, but filled with gentle order, the kind of place where you could feel safe. For years, he had lived alone, until one small soul walked into his life. That soul was Lily. She appeared in the doorway, hair slightly messy, eyes still soft from sleep. For a long time, she had lived in different homes, moving from one place to another, never quite belonging. But here, with Michael, things were different. She felt something new, something steady. He smiled when he saw her, and she shuffled toward the table. Their mornings were ordinary. Yet in those ordinary moments, there was a quiet kind of love, growing, one that neither had spoken fully about, at least, not yet. Every morning before school, Michael helped Lily gather her things. He wasn't required to, but he did it anyway. He tied the loose strap on her bag, made sure her lunch was packed, and asked her about the books she needed. For Lily, it was a strange feeling, someone remembering her needs, someone making sure she was ready for the day. In other homes, she had often been overlooked, but here, Michael noticed the little things that he knelt to zip her bag. She looked down at him, her eyes shining with an unspoken trust. To the world, Michael was just her foster dad, but to Lily, he was already more. Still, the future was uncertain. Papers and rules held the power to decide if she could stay with him, and that thought, though unspoken, sometimes weighed heavily on her young heart. Evenings were quiet in their home. After dinner, Michael often read stories aloud. Lily would curl up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket that smelled faintly of lavender. She listened, not just to the words, but to the calm tone of his voice. She had lived in so many houses, but no one had ever read to her this way. It wasn't about the stories, it was about the feeling of being wanted, of being cared for without condition. Sometimes, as she drifted closer to sleep, Lily wished she could freeze time, that life could stay exactly as it was, safe, warm, and filled with small kindness. But she knew there were things she couldn't control. Judges, hearings, and papers would one day decide if this place could truly be her forever home. And in her heart, she held on to hope. At night, when the house grew quiet, Lily often drew. She sketched little pictures of herself and Michael sitting at the kitchen table, walking in the park, or reading together. Above the drawings, she sometimes wrote the word family. It was a word she rarely spoke aloud, because she feared it might slip away if she said it too soon. But deep inside, she longed for it. She placed one of her drawings under her pillow and whispered into the darkness, "I don't want to leave." Children in foster care often learned not to hope too much, yet Lily could not help it. For the first time, she felt like she belonged. She didn't want another move, another suitcase, another goodbye. She wanted Michael to be her forever. The day of the adoption hearing arrived with the sky covered in clouds. Michael wore a clean shirt and carried the weight of nervous hope in his chest. Beside him, Lily held his hand tightly, her small fingers curling around his with determination. The courthouse loomed large, with tall doors and cold stone steps. For Michael, the building represented a chance to finally give Lily what she deserved, a permanent home. For Lily, it represented something far greater, the chance to finally belong. As they walked together, neither spoke much. The silence wasn't empty, it was filled with quiet courage. They both knew that this day could change everything. Michael gave her hand a reassuring squeeze, and Lily squeezed back, as if telling him she was ready. No matter what the judge might say inside, the courtroom was solemn, with polished wooden benches and high windows letting in pale light. At the front, the judge adjusted his glasses and studied the papers before him. Michael sat beside Lily, his hands folded, his heart steady but anxious. He had been through so many background checks, interviews, and questions. Yet in this moment, it all came down to whether the judge would see what he already knew, that Lily was his daughter in every way that mattered. Lily sat quietly, her legs swinging nervously beneath the chair. She wasn't used to rooms like this, rooms that decided the fate of children. She glanced at Michael, who gave her a small nod of reassurance. Then the judge spoke, his voice calm yet firm. The hearing had begun. As questions were asked, Michael answered with honesty and calm. He spoke of Lily's laughter, her drawings, her love for books. He spoke of how she had changed his life, how he could not imagine a future without her in it. Then, the judge turned to Lily. "Do you have anything you'd like to say, young lady?" The room grew still. Lily's heart pounded, her hands clenched in her lap. but she stood slowly, looking up at the man in the black robe. Her voice trembled at first, but then grew stronger. "He's not just my foster dad," she said softly. "He's my real dad. He's the one who stayed. He's the one who loves me. And I love him too." Michael's eyes stung with tears. The judge leaned back, deeply moved by her words. For Michael, hearing Lily's words was like sunlight breaking through years of grey skies. He reached out and placed his hand over hers. She looked at him, eyes filled with both fear and love, and smiled faintly. The courtroom no longer felt cold or distant. It felt like a place where truth had been spoken, where love had been made visible for all to see. The judge cleared his throat, visibly moved. He adjusted his glasses once more and took a long pause, as though giving weight to the moment. Michael squeezed Lily's hand gently, whispering, "Whatever happens, I'm proud of you." And Lily, holding back tears of her own, whispered back, "I just want to go home with you." The judge finally spoke, his voice steady but softened with warmth. "It is clear to this court," he said, "that love has already made this family. Therefore, I hereby approve the adoption." The words hung in the air like music. Michael's breath caught, and Lily's face lit with a joy she had never felt before. They turned to each other, arms wrapping tightly in an embrace that seemed to erase every lonely night, every uncertain day that had come before. For Lily, it was the first time she knew without a doubt that she had a forever home. For Michael, it was the fulfillment of a promise he had made in his heart long ago, never to let her feel unwanted again. Tears filled their eyes, but they were tears of joy, overflowing from a love that no longer had to hide. When they stepped outside the courthouse, the grey sky had given way to light. Sunbeams poured through the clouds, painting the steps in gold. Michael and Lily walked side by side, their hands clasped tightly, their hearts lighter than ever before. They were no longer foster father and foster daughter. They were family, officially, forever, and in every way that mattered. Lily looked up at Michael with a smile that carried both relief and hope. "We get to go home now," she said softly. Michael nodded, his own smile breaking through tears. "Yes, sweetheart," he whispered. "We're going home together." And as they walked down the courthouse steps, the future stretched wide before them. Not perfect, not without challenges, but filled with love strong enough to carry them through anything. Because at last, they belonged.